I'm Brandee, here with Parkour Visions Online, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do that awesome ground movement sequence that will help you with your flow, stability, and ability to overcome obstacles. Before we get into the sequence, let's make sure to warm up our hands and wrists so we're ready to hold ourselves on them. For these ones, you can be in a crouch like I am. You can be kneeling comfortably. You can even at first be sitting in a straddle or some other position. First thing we're going to do is put our arms out straight in front of us and spread our fingers out wide as they can go. I don't want them to just be out here. I want to spread my fingers, and then a couple times, let's say 3 for now, but for you it can be anywhere 3, 5, 7, enough to feel like you're warm, but not so much that you're tired. From here, it's just up and down. 1. After that, rotations in one direction, and then rotations in the opposite direction. We're also going to add tilting, and also side-to-side deviations, and anything else you might want to come up with for yourself. But wait, there's more. From there, I want you to try and curl your fingers in as tightly as you can while keeping your palms open. We're going to go through the same thing again. Down and up, rotations, opposite direction, tilting, and then side-to-side deviations. You'll notice my arms are still straight. If you find your arms are creeping back in, see if you can straighten them out. It does change these exercises the more you bend your arms. So if you want a little extra challenge, keep them nice and straight. The final one, we're going to curl our hands into a punching fist. By punching fist, I mean my thumb is curled tightly in front of my knuckles. It is not alongside my knuckles, and it's definitely not inside my knuckles. Let's do it all one more time. Down and up. Rotations. Reverse the rotations. Tilting. And side to side. Whew, after all that, go ahead and shake it out. And if you need a more restful position, if you were in a crouch, feel free to find that. If you can still hold the crouch, more power to you. We're going to take this a little bit further and adding warm-up that involves some resistance from a surface. Now, I'm demonstrating on a horizontal surface, but this can also be a vertical surface. Walls, gates, fences, they all work just as well for this, even if it might look a little different. First thing we'll do, same thing as before. I'm going to spread my fingers out nice and wide, plant my palms fully on the ground. Yes, if you're outside, your hands will have to get dirty for this one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean forward, push up on straight fingers, and lower down back to my palms with control. Notice I'm not doing it like this, up and popping down. I definitely don't want to waste the opportunity in the negative, which is the same opportunity as in the positive direction. It's all about building strength. First time I'll go to straight fingers. Next time I'm going to go just to my knuckles. Again, even though we don't want to be holding ourselves up like this or our fingertips all the time, we do end up passing through these positions as we're crawling, pushing, vaulting, plenty of movement, so I want to make sure everything's prepared. I'm going to do this about 3 to 5 times on each side, or for each thing. If you need to adjust the difficulty, the closer you have your hands to your body, the easier it is to lighten the load. The further away or the higher you are on your body as far as your feet and legs, the harder this is going to be. Great. We're going to do the same thing, but this time thumbs turn up and the fingers eventually point toward yourself. Keep in mind this can be a lot more intense in this position, so do take care. Same thing, nice and controlled to straight fingers and to knuckles. By the way, do take this time to make sure you're assessing what's happening in your body. This is not just about doing whatever I'm saying. It's about you feeling what's appropriate, what's ready, what might need more time. and get in the good habit of knowing yourself and the way your body feels very deeply. Okay, let's do the next one. This one involves the fingers pointing away from your center, palms facing each other. And this time I'm switching sides. While I lean to one side, my opposite side gets to do the straight fingers, and then again with knuckles. Again, just to reiterate, if you need this to change how hard it is, you can have your hands further away from you. If you need it to be a little easier, hands can come closer. Last one on the ground. This time, we're going to place our backs of hands on the ground. Now, something I want you to notice is I'm not just plopping them down. I'm actually trying to take my fingernails and drive them into the ground. Okay, a little bit of resistance there. From there, not unlike what we did with our straight arms, I'm going to slowly curl into a punching fist, and then from there, I'm going to rock up to my knuckles. A little bit of care on this one. When I say punching fist, remember thumb in front, not beside, and not within. Second thing is, which knuckles? We have lots of them. When we're looking at stabilizing ourselves on our knuckles, we want to think straight lines from our knuckles through the bones in our arms all the way up. So for that reason, I want to focus on the two big knuckles and having that be the main surface. This is not the most comfortable on concrete or hard surfaces, especially at first. So do make sure you're progressing even that among all the other things. Let's do this a couple times. If you want any extra in this particular iteration, or with anyone, you can also add a small push-up to these maneuvers. So say I went back to my first one, perhaps I want to come up here, I can add a small push. Likewise, the side to side, perhaps I'm going and committing to a deeper push. And even on this last one, I might have a push at the start, and then another one on my knuckles. Make sure you're always adapting it to what you need and what your goals are. Finally, because we've done a lot of compressing and holding, let's make sure we also have something to do when we're feeling like our wrists are kind of sore and tired and tight. A couple of my favorites are grabbing your own hand. Notice I'm coming around, grabbing the fleshy part of my hand, pulling away with my elbow in opposite directions, give a little space here, and then I just add some gentle motions. Same thing on the other side. Now for me, I'll do this anytime I'm taking a break between sets maybe, or I've had a big vaulting or climbing day and I'm just really feeling tight in my wrists. Two other options, same idea, different approach. Linking your fingers together, locking them down, and pulling against both wrists at the same time. Adding some movement, you have the classic wave motions. And finally, for now, you can put your hand on the ground, plant it with the other hand, and add some tension from there, pulling and rotating. What's nice about this one specifically is it does, as you can see, get the elbow and shoulder more into the motion. So a little more going on here. So anytime you're feeling like you need to take a break, or you need to give your wrists some care after working them, go ahead and try one of these and see if that helps. Let's get to the sequence. To start this ground movement pattern, we're going to have to do a couple things. You can start this from a crouch if you'd like to, or you can start from sitting. I'm going to show both. If I start from sitting, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand, one hand doesn't matter which, and put it to my side. Notice I've spread my fingers out, put my palm flat. Whichever hand is down, the opposite side foot bends, and the ball of my foot is also coming down. Now I'm going to check a couple things in this position. First thing is, can I get my hand and my other foot on the same line? So I'm going to scooch this back. If you don't have a marking like a brick surface or sidewalk, what you can do is make your own with tape or find one out in your environment. The second thing I'm going to practice checking for myself is where my center leg is. These moves can happen with my leg in various positions, But if you're just learning this, at first it's going to be the easiest to have your leg be right in the center between your hand and your stabilizing foot. Take a notice of my hand one more time. Notice that my fingers are pointing forward, just like my toes. The movement we're working on in parkour is called the step vault, or step through, or sometimes safety vault. In other disciplines, it's called different names. Sit through, tripod. By every name, it has its own function and purpose. Since we're practicing to overcome physical obstacles with this motion, for now, let's try to imagine that our fingers and toes are pointing in the direction that we are trying to go. Great. From here, all I'm going to do is push up to make some space for myself. I'm trying to pull my leg behind me. Feel free to set it down if you need to, and then back through. Sit back down and check out your form again. One thing you'll notice, especially if you haven't done this before, is you might have the tendency to want to turn your fingers out here or even behind. Again, since we're practicing to overcome physical obstacles, we want to practice having our hand point the direction we want to go. That said, if turning your hand out means the difference between practicing comfortably and practicing not at all, go ahead and do what you need for your body. Great, let's try that a couple more times. Now, depending on the application, my other arm might be doing something else. Perhaps it's coming off of holding something like a tree branch or a railing. Or maybe if I'm doing it for more combative purposes, I'm using it in front of my face to block. Feel free to be creative with this hand and make sure at least you know what it's doing. Great. Now we're going to get to our first transition. The first transition just goes like so. Both feet in front, lean over to the other side, hand comes down, leg comes back up, and then we're back into the same motion. Lifting, threading, and back. Again, try to stay in control of your breathing, like always. And make sure when you're learning this, you're checking yourself every so often to see where you might be going. Keep in mind, this is not meant to be a rigid structure, merely some place to start to help you assess yourself. You now have the first transition. Rather, it's the last transition in the sequence, but for now it's the first one we're learning. It looks just like this. I start my first side, come up, and I switch. This by itself is plenty. This could be a whole day session, but we want to do a bit more. Great. So that's our first one. The second transition is going to be turning 180 degrees. For this, we want to make sure that we understand the quadrupedal position, also known as crawling, cat crawling, by whatever name you call it. It looks something like this. What I'm doing here is I'm having my shins about parallel to the ground, hands flat, fingers nice and wide. Notice that my hips are low and I can move my head around and see things. If I let my hips creep up, not only does it look a bit goofier, although you get a nice hamstring stretch and there's plenty of reasons to be in this position, what it does not do is help me see my environment. So I want to make sure I get my hips as low as possible. To check your stability here, there's a drill you can do with no space at all except for the places you have your hands and feet. It looks something like this. I'm going to get into my crawling position, and I'm going to try and lift my opposite hand and foot and try to do as little movement as possible once they're off the ground. What I'm trying to not do is lose my balance, let my hips shift, or otherwise lose stability. Okay? Once more in that position, and then we'll see the transition. Great. Now coming back from our original position, whether you were sitting, maybe I'll show it from squatting this time. From here, I still want to get into the leg extended position first. So I reach out, leg is here. Now, instead of sitting down and switching, what I am going to do is I'm going to pull that leg underneath me and face this way. From here, I'm going to rotate, and now it's my opposite hand and foot. And now I have my left hand and right foot, whereas before I started with my right and left. Coming back, same thing. I want you to notice my hands again. Remember when I said for now we're practicing with pointing our fingers and our toes where we want to go? You'll notice that when I do this transition, before I start pulling my leg in, before I commit to anything, the first thing I'm doing is I'm turning my near hand in the direction I want to go. What this will do is it will prevent torquing on my wrist that can lead to pain and injury, and it just gets me where I'm going a little bit sooner. So watch carefully. Pivot on my palm, so my fingers come up, same thing here. Pivoting on my palm, getting self ready, pivoting on the ball of my foot, and reaching out. As you get more comfortable with this motion, you don't have to pause in the middle anymore. It might eventually look something like this. Okay, for the final transition, and then we'll put it all together, we have to think about the same things we've been thinking this whole time. Considering where our hands and feet are pointing, knowing which direction we mean to turn or change, and being mindful of staying on a similar line. Now, again, you do not have to be perfectly on a small, thin line to start with. It's just to help us guide ourselves and a basis for assessment. Okay? So the last move is going to start on either side. What you'll do is just like before, we're going to just lift up, but this time, when I pull my leg behind me, I'm not going to stop with it just behind me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it through and see how far out I can get it on the same line. Now you see I'm a bit offset. Again, it's not bad. It just is the way it is. But right now, I'm trying to get this position here. If you want to start from this position first, by all means, go for it. It might look more like this to learn how far you can go. Come out. Find a good straight leg stance. If I can't get my hands down right beneath me, no problem. Try and put your hands out further away from your body. And all we're doing here is picking up one hand. That gives us our space to step through. So I can just work it like this. Switch it out. This hand. Here. Maybe you even want to give yourself points to tap or some sort of goal for how far you want to reach. This is the last transition. If I do it from lower, it looks a little bit more like this. Coming all the way to the front position. And if I do it with a little bit more speed, it looks something like this. Now, to get the sequence that you saw, all we're going to do is put those things together, one after another. Once you get this down, you'll notice that you'll do the patterns on one side, or with one set of hands and feet, and then naturally you will switch to the other side of hands and feet. So we get a good balance of practicing all of our options here. Let's start again from sitting. So from the sitting position, I'm going to go directly into the 180-degree transition. Looks like so. From here, turning 180 degrees. Now it's from here that I will do my facing the same direction. And from here, all I'm going to do, switch sides. And again, pulling through, 180, around, switch sides. Remember to take this slow when you first start it, or even if you are familiar with these movements. There's no such thing as too many fundamentals, and no such thing as too much control over your body. And that's it for this video and that sequence. I hope you find challenge and fun in trying these things out, and if you want to know more about what we do at Parkour Visions, do find us online at parkourvisions.org or pkvmoves.com. Happy practicing!